This is my Christian fiction TBR, and I'm gonna be reading these one by one until I can find a 5-star book. The only issue is that this genre is seen by a lot of people as being a little bit cheesy, so I'm a little bit worried, especially because I'm starting off with a romance book that has some very mixed reviews. This book is called Provenance, and at first I did think it had potential. I mean, I have all these books in the first place because I love Christian fiction, but just like many of the reviews said, the romance part was a bit cheesy. Overall, it wasn't terrible, but it definitely wasn't great. I don't think there's anything like really bad about this book. It just wasn't really my type of book. I feel like the Christian aspect did feel a little bit cheesy at points, but maybe that's just because that's how romance books tend to be to me. So I'm gonna give it a 2.5 stars, I think. But even though it's easy to find not so good Christian fiction, when I do find a good one, they tend to be some of my favorite books of all time. Like the last book in this video, which was obviously a 5-star and honestly just phenomenal. But before that book, I ended up picking one out that had one of the funniest plot lines I think I've ever read. It is time to pick out another book since the last one was not a 5-star. I've already kind of decided what I want to do next. I want to switch up the genre. I want to do something a little bit different. And I think that this one, it's called Monster by Frank Peretti. It's going to be perfect for that. This one is like an adventure-y mystery thriller, which is a bit more up my alley. And so I have a lot of high hopes for this one. I am already on chapter 5 of this book, which is over 50 pages in. I'm like flying through it because this is one of the most interesting beginnings of a book I think I've ever read. I had read a Frank Peretti book before that I liked, which is a big reason why I chose this one. Also, when I read the synopsis in the story, it was like the most intriguing thing I think I've ever read. Basically, it says it's about a couple who goes hiking through some woods somewhere, and their first night there, a mysterious creature comes and takes one of them away. And I think the majority of the book is them trying to figure out what this monster is and what it wants from them. And that's basically what I've read so far. One of the main characters gets taken by this mysterious monster. I still don't know what it is. There's just so much action and suspense that's happened in these first few chapters that it's just been so fun to read. This video might end quicker than I thought because I'm definitely really loving this book so far. And honestly, I'm just ready to keep reading. I really want to know what happens. I've been reading this like intermittently throughout the day, but I've been reading a lot because this story is so good so far. Like I said, something about just such an exciting, fast-paced story makes me just fly through it. I surprisingly don't read that much of these kinds of books, even though I feel like it's like one of my favorite genres. There's mystery, there's suspense, there's adventure, it's very outdoorsy, the setting is great. However, something I am a little bit worried about is how on earth this could like possibly make sense or conclude, I guess. They still haven't figured out what this monster is, and there's been a lot of theories from different people about whether it's some kind of Sasquatch or Bigfoot or something like that. And I think that would hurt the book for me a lot because if it becomes too far-fetched, it's gonna just come off really silly to me. I want it to have some sort of logical explanation. I think that's what would make this book perfect for me. We'll see. I bet I'm not gonna figure it out until towards the end. We will see. Something else I am really enjoying about this book is the integration of Christianity. I think this is just something Frank Peretti does really well with all of his books. It's integrated very naturally and very easily. It doesn't seem too forced, which is exactly something I'm looking for in these Christian fiction books. The two main characters in this book are Christians and they're praying some, but again, it's in a very natural way, which I really like. I've been looking through my TBR of books, and if Monster doesn't end up working out, I know exactly what I want to read next. I actually just watched a review on it. It's a book that's been really popular lately. I think it was like #1 on the New York Times bestseller list for a while, which is pretty crazy for a Christian fiction. I really want to try it out, so I definitely know what I'm doing next if Monster doesn't end up working. So I read a decent amount yesterday, and now today I'm only less than 100 pages away from finishing this book, which is super exciting. A lot has happened in this story, and I don't even know how much I want to say because I don't want to spoil this book, but it has taken a very funny turn. Basically, there's this whole metaphor of Jacob and Rachel and Leah, like from the Bible. Basically, that story is kind of being retold within the monsters that are living in the woods. It's kind of weird. It's so strange that it's kind of just funny to me. Again, there's a lot more I could say. I don't want to spoil everything, but it's just getting kind of silly. That's not to say that I don't like the book anymore. Honestly, a lot of Frank Peretti books to me feel like I'm just watching a movie. The writing style is very fast paced, and so I'm excited to see how it ends and everything, but that part of the plot was just funny to me, and I will say there's a little bit of cringe in it. I'm gonna finish this now and I'll let you know my final thoughts in a minute. Okay, so I just finished this book. I actually did really like the way that it ended. There were some much more logical explanations as to what was all going on in these woods. Things that I was really curious about for the majority of the book did get, I feel like, a good explanation. So I did like that part to it, but like I said, there was a lot to the plot of this book that I ended up just finding kind of funny, and it wasn't necessarily my favorite thing. So because of that, I think I'm gonna give this book a 3 stars. And because this book wasn't a 5-star, it was time for me to go back to my TBR pile and find another. And luckily, I already knew exactly which one I wanted to pick. My bookshelves are all really full, so this is what I'm working with. And although there are a bunch of options, I'm pretty sure I know which one I want to do next. And I've read the synopsis and it sounds like such an interesting story, so I have so much hope for this book. I really feel like there's such a good chance that this might be my 5 stars. So it is Theo of Golden by Alan Levi. When I bought this book, it was like on the front table of Barnes & Noble. When I checked out, the woman was like, so many people have been buying this book lately. I find that so surprising for a Christian book. I feel like that rarely ever happens. So again, very high hopes for this one, and I'm gonna start reading it now. This book ended up being so close to the winner, but didn't quite get 5 stars for one very specific reason. Essentially what it's about is this older man named Theo who shows up in the small town of Golden unannounced for seemingly no reason. Nobody really knows what he's doing there or where he's from or what he's planning to do. He shows up and he's asking a lot of questions and everyone's very curious about him. He finds a coffee house where on the wall are a bunch of pencil portraits, like drawings of different townspeople that some artist did, and they're all for sale, and he starts this task of buying them one by one and finding the people who are in the portrait and giving it to them as a gift. But I'm really interested to see where it's gonna go and what's gonna happen. I'm planning to read a lot for the rest of today and tonight, and we'll see how far we get. I'm already getting close to 150 pages into this book, which has been nice. I've been able to dedicate so much of my day each day to reading. The book is definitely very slow paced, and it's definitely much more of a character type of story than a plot story. There's kind of this big mystery around the main character and what he's doing in this small town, like what is his intention. And he's like moving there and going to this coffee house all the time and buying a different portrait and giving it to the person who's drawn in the portrait. Even though Theo is the main character, you as the reader don't quite know all that's going on with him either. So there's a little bit of mystery around that, and I'm excited to see what happens with that. Something else I've also been enjoying about this story is that with each new person he brings a portrait to, you learn so much about that person's life. Everyone in this town is living such a different life. They all have different backstories and different family members and things going on. Theo, the main character, cares so much about each of these people and what's going on in their lives, and he's working really hard to be as kind to them and as helpful to them as he can. A great listener to their life story and someone that these people really love to be around. And then the gift of the portrait actually means so much to them because it more or less shows how much Theo cares. I don't know, there's a lot of like little sweet moments like that throughout the story, and I'm excited to read more of those. I will say that this genre isn't usually one that I would read, or at least not one I read a lot of. I tend to love more fast-paced, bigger plot type of books, like kind of with the last one. There is something kind of refreshing and nice to read one of these every once in a while, and I think when it's done really well, I can really appreciate it no matter what. I really ended up liking the ending of this book. I love the overall message about the verse that's like, faith without works is dead. Even though there's parts of the book that feel a little bit repetitive or slow, it's such a good like real life example of someone who doesn't just have faith, but like shows it too. So anyway, such a good book. Like I said though, the book is definitely not my typical genre, my typical favorite type of book, but because it was still so good for what it was, I think I'm gonna rate this one a 4.5 stars. I was gonna do a 5-star, but then I was like, I think I might be doing that just because I want to get to a 5-star so that I can finish the video, but I want to be honest, I don't think this is as good as my other like 5-star books that I really love. So it's time to pick out another book. Okay, I'm back by the stack. It's time to pick another book and hope that this time this one will be a 5-star. I have so many options, and I was just sitting here for a while trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, and I have narrowed it down to 2. These are both by the same author, and they seem like they're kind of similar books, but I'm just trying to decide which one I think I would like better. So I'm gonna think about it for a minute, and then I'll let you know what I choose. The book I ended up choosing was definitely the right choice because right off the bat, I was loving it. It had such a unique storyline that all centered around the human's desire to worship anything and how dangerous it can be when we idolize things that aren't God. I'm over 50 pages in now. It's a pretty short book, so I only have like a little over 100 pages left until I'm done. It just seems like it does have a lot of 5-star potential. I'm only 50 pages in, so we'll see. I don't want to get my hopes up too much, but I am really excited about this book. This book seems to deal a lot with like so many different types of beliefs and different types types of gods, and it seems like the main character knows God and prays some, but doesn't quite know what's true and what's real, and I can tell he's like trying to slowly figure it out. The story is basically about, it takes place a long time ago in California. This guy is settling on a lot of land that he just bought, and he's so far just kind of like trying to make a life for himself, trying to work the land, trying to make a living. There's a lot of things going on. He has a big family, everyone's believing different things, and it seems like the main character is just trying to figure out what's true, and I'm interested to see how he gets there, or even if he gets there. But yeah, a lot of potential so far. This book is by John Steinbeck, and he's the one who also wrote East of Eden, which I really loved. I read that recently, and I'm seeing so many similarities between this book and East of Eden. The setting is like exactly the same, the time frame is about the same time, and I think that might partly be why I'm loving this so much, is because it's reminding me a lot of that book, which I absolutely love. But anyway, right now in the story, the main character is definitely making some bad decisions. He's really attributing the success or decline of his land to nature, and he's almost treating nature as like a god. So he's definitely walking in a bad direction with this, but definitely such a cool book so far. A very interesting story, and I'm really, really liking that. I think the biggest reason I enjoyed this book so much is because it's nothing like I've ever read before. It had such an interesting ending, and I loved how there was a huge emphasis on how easy it is for a Christian to ask for something from God. It doesn't require any rituals or sacrifice or anything crazy like that, just a simple prayer and God listens. The book really showed the difference between that and what this main character had to do to like appease his false god. There was just a lot of cool things like that I noticed throughout the entire book, and because of that, I'm going to be giving this one a 5 stars. It's called To a God Unknown by John Steinbeck, and let me know if you want to see me keep reading more Christian fiction, because I still have a lot to go.